Hey, Angela, I got a trivia question for you.
I'm always up for trivia. Hit me.
Which famous autistic actor, confirmed diagnosed autistic actor, was a major player in the Transformer franchise?
Welcome to the Autistic Culture Podcast, where we celebrate autistic contributions to society and culture.
Join us every Tuesday as we dive into everything from famous autistics in history to the pop culture, unique passions, and the special interests that define our community.
Whether you're autistic or love someone who is, welcome to Autistica. We're your hosts, Dr. Angela Kingdon, the linguistic autistic,
and Matt Lowry, licensed psychological practitioner. Join us as we explore the values, traditions, and identity of Autistica. Episode 79, Transformers Are Autistic. Hey, Angela.
Hey, Matt.
Oh, man, we've got every once in a while, we come across a topic that I am really surprised I haven't done yet because this is how my brain works.
We're like 79 episodes in. You would think that there are not many we haven't done. And
yeah. There's always something interesting that pops up, and it's always on my periphery. And right now, I am in the process of moving, but I do have an autistic wall of fame. And sometimes I will pass the wall of fame and say, oh, yeah, I really need to cover that. I really need to cover that because, there's a lot of autistic characters out there. And for some reason, we have never covered Transformers.
Well, here's the thing. I didn't know Transformers were autistic. I'm not seeing it yet, but
okay. So
will you convince me?
Oh, yeah. So first of all, we have to talk a little bit about the history, about the lore, about, because, I can't imagine autistic people would like to hear a lore dump. Man, no, what are we thinking on that?
Let's just do it anyway. And if they don't like it, screw it.
Yeah. So the Transformers actually originated in the 60s with G.I. Joe.
No.
Yes.
Did he have like a tank that turned into a boat or something? What?
Well, he turned into a robot.
G.I. Joe was a Transformer?
Well, okay, so here's the thing. Back in the 1960s, Mattel, oh my God, they revoked my geek card. Hasbro invented G.I. Joe the Soldier, right? And he was, for all intents and purposes, a doll that you could dress in an army uniform with a karate chop action and had all these accessories that you could put on him and send him into battle and all this other stuff. So after World War II, Japan was in the process of rebuilding, and Hasbro reached out to Takara, a toy company there, and said, hey, would you like to license our G.I. Joe toys? And they said, I don't know. Japan, 20 years ago, we had this whole incident thing, and there's not much of a market for American war dolls here, but we'll give it a shot. So they imported G.I. Joe. Sales were all right, but they realized that instead of casting G.I. Joe in flesh tone plastic, if they cast him in translucent plastic and filled his innards with robot parts, he could be Henshin Cyborg. Henshin being the word for transform.
Okay.
So Henshin Cyborg, instead of coming with army uniforms and guns and that kind of stuff, was able to dress up as Ultraman or popular cyborgs and robots and, mecha of the day.
Wow.
Okay. And indeed, it became a little bit more popular. And Japanese kids were like, you know what? I love some robots. This is great. So as time went on, the oil crisis of the 1970s caused Japan to say, man, it's really, really expensive to produce these 12-inch dolls. What if we produce the first ever 3 3/4-inch action figure, Microman? So Henshin Cyborg was shrunk into Microman. And Microman is exactly just a scaled down version of Hinge and Cyborg. So when in the 1980s, as a side, when G.I. Joe came back in the 1980s, they used the new Microman size for the new G.I. Joes. And it's also the new size of the Star Wars figures and everything else of the day.
Yeah, because they probably had to build the molds and stuff, and then it was so much cheaper to make that they're like, let's do everything with these molds.
Exactly. Well, the molds actually had magnets and had all these other sorts of neat things. And Microman had all these friends because Microman was intended to be a one-to-one scale action figure. Oh. That there's all these teeny tiny little robots who live in our modern day world. And they had friends like a cassette player and his cassette man. And they had a friend like, just general things that you would find around a kid's bedroom. Like a cassette player, mini cassettes, a Walther P-36 gun, all those sort of things that you would find. Yeah. So Megatron started out as Gun Robo, a variation of the gun used in Microman, but with special extension pieces that was used in a special edition Man from Uncle Transformer.
Okay, that's getting bizarre now. All
it
right.
is. Well, just wait. Yeah. So there's this line called Micro Change that has all these one-to-one scale toys that they're intended as like puzzles where you turn one thing into a robot. Oh. And at the same time, they have this line called Diaclone where you can turn a car into a robot. And again, they didn't have a lot of articulation because these are designed as puzzles. There was no story at the time. It was just, hey, check out this neat toy. It turns from a thing into a thing. Isn't that neat? And Japanese kids were like, yeah, that's kind of cool. I like that. So at the time, so this is a bit of apocryphal lore here because this is really, really neat. So there has been some really interesting investigation as of late as to how Transformers came to America.
Okay.
And before Hasbro imported them, it turns out that there was a small toy company called Knickerbocker.
Okay, good name
Knickerbocker
for a toy company.
Toys was going to import the Transformers line, and there was going to be this TV series produced by Freeling DePatty Productions, the same company that did like the Pink Panther, right? But after a while, they were bought out by a much larger company, Marvel.
Oh, that is some lore.
So Freeling DePatty became Marvel Productions.
Wow.
And the guy who is behind Freeling DePatty stuff and behind a lot of Marvel productions, for instance, the guy who produced Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, right?
Mm-hmm, I know it.
Had Spider-Man, Firestar, created for the show, Iceman, because they couldn't get access to the Human Torch. And he was a big fan of randomly adding sidekick dogs. So they were going to make a show about this new line of transforming robots. So they imported a bunch of stuff. So aside from stuff that turned into, guns and cassette players and cars and stuff, there was also a very small line of small cars that turned into penny racers, like a tiny Volkswagen Beetle or a tiny Porsche 934 that would later become Bumblebee and Cliffjumper, right?
I was going to say, I see where you're going with this.
Right. So Knickerbocker actually produced extra toys in this vein to go along with them, which later became molds like Brawn and Windcharger. And if you look on their chests, they have M for Mysterion, because the line of transforming robots was not going to be called Transformers. It was going to be called Mysterions.
And not as good of a name, in my opinion.
It is not. And you can see production stuff. We'll include that in the show notes too, because I forgot to include that. But there's production art of a show that featured this Volkswagen Beetle as the main character. And guess what this character's name was? It was the star of the show, a masculine, heroic robot named Muffy.
Oh, I'm like, is it Megatron? No,
Muffy. The show is going to be
Muffy.
called Muffy and the Mysterions.
Okay.
And the production art shows a Transformer that would later become known as Prowl, a Transformer that would later be known as Starscream, and the Mysterions on Earth. But Knickerbocker Toys was soon bought by a much larger toy company, Hasbro.
Okay.
And somewhere along the line, somebody at Hasbro was going to Japan at the toy fair and said, boy, these toys are really, really neat. And this person takes credit for bringing everything over, even though we have documented evidence that says that Knickerbocker Toys, before being integrated into Hasbro, already was looking at this kind of stuff. So there's some mixed remembering on this sort of thing, especially when you're looking back 40 years ago on a worldwide phenomenon. So, things change.
Yes.
So anyway,
memories.
This is where we come in, and this person said, boy, this would make a really, really great line of toys. Let's buy everything. So he proceeded to buy the rights for literally every transforming robot he could find, everything from Takara in Microchange and Diaclone, combining a cassette robot and a car robot into the same line, but also going as far as like Astro Magnum, which would become Shockwave, and a Macross Valkyrie, which would become Jetfire, from a completely different series, which later ended up with rights issues here in the US when they imported Macross as Robotech. But anyway, so they imported these things over, but there was no story behind them. And they figured that US kids needed a story. So back to G.I. Joe. When they decided to make G.I. Joe 3 3/4 inch tall, this was before Reagan said, oh yes, you can absolutely advertise children's toys on TV. So they needed a way to advertise these toys. So they went to this company, Marvel, and Marvel produced a G.I. Joe comic book.
They said, we will write you a story. That's what we do here.
Exactly. So one of the cheapest G.I. Joes to produce was Snake Eyes, just cast entirely in black paint, or cast entirely in black plastic with no paint. And he became one of the stars. And because the comic did so well, they had a mini-series commissioned after Reagan deregulated everything. And the miniseries became multiple miniseries, and G.I. Joe went on to become very famous, produced by Marvel Productions. By this time, the guy from Freeling to Patty, who really wanted to add dogs to everything, he was he and Marvel parted ways.
I was going to say he was fired.
Yeah. They did not
have
what's
up with the dogs, dude? Not feeling it.
They did not have a good working relationship, so they parted ways. They used a lot of Sunbow Productions animation studio overseas in order to get the animation taken care of. But they decided, hey, if it worked for G.I. Joe, it can work for these robots. So they went to Marvel editor-in-chief Jim Shooter, and Jim Shooter said, man, this is really cool. I really, really like this red truck. This red truck should be the leader because he's the best. He is the first. He is the greatest. He is the Optimus. He is the Prime. So he created Optimus Prime.
I get it.
So, but he also needed around 35 other names and biographies. So he went to everybody in the office and said, hey, can you come up with these? No, I don't want to work on a kid's book. No, I don't want to work on toys. No, I don't want to work on this. I don't want to work on So anyway, he finally ended up with Bob Budiansky, a writer at Marvel. And Bob said, yeah, I'll do it. So in one weekend, he created the names and personalities of all of these Transformers, everybody from Starscream and Bumblebee. And Starscream's Jim Shooter originally named Starscream Ulktar. It was not as catchy as Optimus Prime.
No, kind of scary.
Speaking of scary, Bob Budiansky came up with the name Megatron, a play on both Metatron and Megaton. And he gave it to Hasbro, and Hasbro said, I don't know, that name sounds a little scary. And he said, well, he's the leader of the bad guys. He's supposed to be scary. And they said, good point. Let's name him that.
Yeah, it's a good name.
So the reason that Transformers is a success is because they are Marvel characters. And they were Marvel characters for many years. The TV show, even though the Patty Freeling people had largely exited, the show was a little different than the comic. They still had the same basic character traits. The plots were a little different. There's some stuff about that. But generally speaking, this is the source of the Transformers fame. And before we get more into that, I need to clarify that this is what we call Generation 1. Because those were the original Transformers that went from 1984 until about 1989.
Those are my people. I mean, my Transformers. They are of my era.
So Transformers went through a period where they didn't transform, and they were called Action Masters because they were just teeny little action figures. Again, 3 3/4 scale robots, but they didn't transform, and it because again they were looking at gimmicks after gimmicks after gimmicks because the Hasbro people were trying to lean away from Takara and do their own thing. It wasn't working, so they went dormant for a while and came back with Generation 2, which is why we now call the originals Generation 1 as a retronym.
Got it.
Generation 2 did not work out well, so they went dormant again. And then Hasbro bought this company called Kenner that produced like Ghostbusters and Star Wars and all this other stuff. And they also bought GoBots, a rival line of transforming robots.
Yes.
And they were going to do something, well, because at this time they said, Transformers isn't doing anything. Maybe we could do a GoBots revival. So Kenner was going to do a GoBots revival, but change everything to, instead of them transforming into cars and planes, they were going to transform into animals. So somewhere along the line, instead of a GoBots revival, it became a Transformers revival, and it became Transformers Beast Wars. And it had articulation. It had all this new stuff going on. And Beast Wars reinvigorated the brand. Beast Wars became Beast Machines. Beast Machines. By this time, Takara started doing Transformers again. They started doing car robots. And then Transformers were back. Optimus Prime was now a fire engine. The robots turned into cars again. And this started an entire renaissance that has gone through this day. They did the Unicron trilogy, Armada, Energon, and Cybertron. They did the live action movie, which I personally hate. Because, again, while Transformers has this incredible lore, the guys who wrote the Transformers movie referred to it as, and I quote, writing Campbell's Soup the movie because it's just product placement. They did not respect the lore. They did not respect the characters. They just did their own thing.
So common.
Yeah. So the Transformers movie, then there was Transformers Animated for the people who didn't like Transformers the movie. And it goes on today with the Transformers Legacy line, which has no accompanying media whatsoever. But so how does this mean that the Transformers are autistic, you say?
If you're anything like me, online quizzes might be your guilty pleasure. That's why I am so excited to announce the Autistic Culture Quiz. It's fast, it's fun, and it's pretty to look at. But best of all, it might just change how you see yourself. Take it right now at bit.ly/autistic culture quiz. If you've ever felt like you just get autistic culture, but you don't know how to explain it, this quiz will help you explain autism from a non-medical perspective. Each question is based on one of the 10 pillars of autistic culture. Take the quiz now and improve your cultural competency. It's totally free. I did just go to
we are going to start off with, it does have accompanying media through
and Autistic Culture Quiz is all one word, all lowercase.
Were originally Marvel.
This is the way.
And then they went to Dreamwave Productions, which had a spectacular implosion, which is a story of legend. And then it went to IDW Publishing, which did my personal favorite piece of Transformer media ever, which we will talk about in a minute. And now it's at Skybound production with Robert Kirkman, who did The Walking Dead. So there's a new
Oh,
renaissance.
okay. Oh, things
Yeah,
are about to happen.
yeah. So, and he's now like in charge of new Transformer
Storylines.
storytelling. And as we record this, tomorrow a brand new Transformers animated movie is being released called Transformers One, that talks about Optimus Prime's days before he became a leader, back when he was a librarian named Orion Pax.
Okay.
And his best friend was a miner named D16 before D16 becomes Megatron.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, there are actually two canonically autistic Transformers who are specifically said in media that they are autistic. The first is a Transformer called Transmutate. Transmutate was in a single episode of Beast Wars, written by Christy Marks, who is the woman who created Jim. Outrageous, truly,
Gem
truly
is
outrageous.
Truly outrageous, truly outrageous.
Yeah,
that's like my favorite cartoon.
She was a prolific Transformer writer, and again, she came up with this episode where it ties like RC to the modern day Transformers, and so the way over the years it was established initially Transformers are just robots, right? But then with the Transformers the movie, they came up with this idea of a life spark in the pre-production stuff before that was edited out. But Beast Wars brought back the fact that Transformers are living machines animated by an ethereal spark, their soul.
Okay. Me too.
So there is the Transformers Devil, Unicron, as seen in Transformers the movie. There's the Transformers God, Primus, who transforms into Cybertron. And Primus has been dormant for all these millions of years, but creates Transformer sparks because they are all part of the Allspark, because all are one. So there's these sparks that are given bodies in these liquid metal forms called protoforms. And this episode deals with a specific protoform. It lands on prehistoric Earth where the Transformers are fighting. And every protoform has a pod that's supposed to scan the environment and give you an alternate mode that fits that environment to turn your robot form into something that is survivable so that explorers can go off to a new planet, acclimate to the planet, and live. But the pod goes glitchy, and all of a sudden this protoform spark is released without an alt mode and is not suited for their environment. And there's this the Transformers encounter this, and they don't know what to make of it because it doesn't look like any other Transformer, it doesn't talk like any other Transformer, so they call it Transmutate because it's a little wonky. Transmutate is voiced by the same woman who did the voice of RC in the original cartoon, Sue Blue. So she, again, prolific. But anyway, over the course of this, one of the bad guys is based on Hannibal Lecter. He eats other Transformers. His name is Rampage. And he says, boy, this Transformer is just like me, a weird Transformer that no one understands. Meanwhile, on the good side, there's Silverbolt, someone that has really intense justice sensitivity, does not get jokes, does not get any. He's very autistic coded. He actually has the first like on-screen major Transformer romance with one of the bad guys because he just doesn't get that anybody can be bad. So he decides to take Transmutate
autistic
in.
naivete.
Exactly. So Silverbolt is the good guy, Rampage is the bad guy. They both want to fight to preserve Transmutate because the leader of the Predacons, Megatron Jr., wants to kill it because it's a danger. The leader of the good guys, Optimus Primal, I joke that Optimus Primal is the great grandson of Optimus Prime because that's 8 primes or primate, and he turns into a monkey. There you go.
Okay,
but anyway,
nice.
So Optimus Primal says that the Transmutate is too dangerous to herself and needs to be put in stasis because she she just can't manage herself. And Silverbolt is horrified by this because he believes that everybody deserves a chance, everybody deserves to be happy, everybody deserves this. So he and Rampage are fighting. Rampage wants Transmutate to join him and become evil. Silverbolt wants to protect Transmutate and be good. Eventually, Transmutate just kind of freaks out, and in order to they start shooting missiles at each other to protect Transmutate. But in order to save her friends, Transmutate steps into the missiles and gets herself blown up. And the only thing that she says is friends and hurt. So later on, many years later, they decided to bring Transmutate back in Transformers Collector Club exclusive comics. She gets a new body, and she is canonically autistic. Says that, again, they explain that she has a very particular way of seeing the world, that she is very empathetic, that she is very, she doesn't see the bad in people. It's very much like the whole Beauty and the Beast episode where we want to be understood. So she once again befriends the Hannibal Lecter type Rampage because she wants to see the good in him. She can see that he's hurting. She can see that, he's not all bad, even though he eats people.
Right.
So
this is the way.
Yeah, exactly. So she, in this comic, is explicitly autistic. The other currently autistic, canonically autistic character is, oh man, hold on one second, Geomotus. And Geomotus is part of the IDW line of comics.
Okay.
Again, one of my favorites. They rebooted right before Skybound took over. And he is described as someone, let me pull up his biography here. I've given a whole bunch of links to the TF Wiki page.
It's true. They're in the show notes, so you can find those over on the Substack page.
Geomotus is one of Cybertron's most proficient geologists. A dedicated scientist, he's happiest when he's outdoors exploring the vast and ever-changing vistas of his homeworld, whether that's spelunking into the sonic canyons or surveying the Rust Sea with the assistance of his onboard radar systems, rather than fighting the Decepticons. Unlike most Cybertronians, Geomotus is neurodivergent. In practice, this means that he's blunt, occasionally withdrawn, and sometimes struggles with social cues. For instance, he sometimes forgets that not all Transformers are as interested in planetary tectonics or fissure dynamics as he is, and might not appreciate hearing about them in inopportune situations. To help him adjust to unfamiliar, upsetting situations, he carries with him a set of quote-unquote shapes, handheld blocks that allow him to self-soothe by focusing on something familiar. Despite these eccentricities, the Autobots and their allies view Geomotus as a respected colleague whose meticulous, methodical nature allows him to detect patterns in Cybertron's metallic strata that less careful observers might overlook.
Whoa!
So we definitely have two...
Hold on, what year was that written?
I think it was 2 years ago.
Okay, so that is
2019. Man, I've lost all awareness of time.
No time has been kept since 2020. It just stopped at that point. Yeah.
So we have two canonically autistic Transformers, but we don't end there, because if we go all the way back to the original Transformers, Generation 1, we've mentioned autistic voice actors before. Specifically, a man named Corey Burton, who has he is diagnosed autistic. He has been a voice actor for several decades. He was the voice of Ludwig von Drake for Disney. He is the voice of Walt Disney World. He took over for Dawes Butler in doing the Haunted Mansion stuff. He is the voice of Disney Monorail. He is the voice of Disney the gondolas. I can't remember. The voice of Disney buses. Anytime Disney has something, they call upon Corey Burton. But it doesn't end there, because in the original Generation 1 cartoon, Corey Burton was the voice of the Transformers human sidekick Spitewick Wiki. He voiced many other Transformers, but specifically Shockwave. Shockwave was written as a, quote, Spock-type character.
Oh, okay.
He was essentially doing an impersonation of David Warner from like Tron at the time. And Shockwave is ultra logical. Canonically, he has had his emotions removed so he can be more logical. He doesn't have a face, he just has a light up eye because, you can't read his facial expressions because
Mm-hmm.
he has a very flat face, a very flat affect, completely logical. So he is autistic coded from the start, voiced by an autistic actor.
Hmm.
On the Autobot side, we have Perceptor. Perceptor, what kind of alt mode do you think would be suitable for an autistic transformer?
Oh God. Something sensory related.
We'll count
I,
that, yes.
eyes, ears. A train.
Oh, actually, that would have been
Oh
very good.
no. Okay. We
Yeah,
need that. I'm like,
yeah.
I don't
Well,
think there
well,
is one, but
there's several that turn into trains. There's actually
okay.
the train bots. There's Astro Train. I got my son several Astro Trains because my son loves space shuttles and trains, and then he turns into a space shuttle and a train. So it's great.
That's
But
perfect.
he Perceptor was one of my childhood favorite Transformers because he turned into a working microscope.
Uh, okay,
Yeah,
I didn't have that. Did not. Nope.
yeah.
Wouldn't have guessed.
Yeah, because again, whereas the majority of kids would go out there and play with tanks and guns and
Right.
cassette tapes, I was out there saying, "Oh boy, we could study this rock. Oh, look at this.
I did
You
love
could
my microscope set though. I'm not
exactly,
gonna lie. Yeah. Mm.
exactly." And so the character of Perceptor has an autistic accent before we knew such a
Ooh.
thing because he speaks in a very pedantic language. He is very, very data driven. He fails to see a lot of obvious things. He was a major player in the 1986 Transformers the movie. He tried to save Optimus Prime's life. Spoiler, Optimus Prime keeps dying. And
Mm.
after they realized what a mistake they made in the 1986 movie, they brought him back and he keeps dying and coming back because that is the way. So, but anyway, Perceptor is based, his personality is based on that of Transformer designer Hideaki Yuki.
Mm.
Hideaki Yoke, sorry. Yoke-san is a genius puzzle maker. And in every interview, he is very, very shy, very unassuming. He essentially designed from wooden blocks all of the original Transformers back when they were microchange and Diaclone,
Wow.
and he considers them his children, and that is his legacy. And he was honored several years ago with Hasbro presenting him a giant 2-up version of Perceptor and a little version of Perceptor that when you look in his lens, you see a picture of Yoke-san.
Oh, I love that for him.
And he was later immortalized in Transformers Animated, where the leader of the Robo Ninjas, voiced by George Takei, is called Yoke-san.
Oh, I love that. I love George Takei as well.
So Perceptor is fairly autistic, and Yoke-san could have a hint as well, because again, he is a puzzle maker at heart. But
Mm-hmm.
we don't end there. So Corey Burton later came on to voice a lot of characters in Transformers Animated, once again including Shockwave, and his Shockwave turns into a spy because he can mask. He literally puts on a face to mask and infiltrate the Autobots as Long Arm Prime, and he also plays the grumpy Autobot medic Ratchet, uh, sort of named on by as Nurse Ratchet.
Nurse Ratchet? Yeah,
Yes,
okay. Got that reference.
and Ratchet is a grumpy old man who doesn't like any of these modern fangled references. He just wants to be by himself and fix things because that's the way he rolls. And he also voiced the new incarnation of Megatron. So
Hmm.
Corey Burton's inflection changed the way that this new Megatron spoke, the new Megatron acted, the way this new Megatron leads the Decepticons. Instead of Frank Welker is a great voice actor, also probably autistic. Frank Welker has been in almost everything ever made by human beings, probably all the way back to cave paintings. Who knows?
Okay.
So he was
Excellent.
like the
That sounds
voice
very
of
accurate.
yeah
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So anyway, So whereas Frank Welker was a very cartoonish villain of, oh no, we must run away. Corey Burton's Megatron is methodical and plotting and takes a lot from Beast Wars Megatron, where they're a genuine menace. But the that I digress. Corey Burton still a legend, still canonical, still diagnosed autistic. But that leads us to other incarnations of Megatron. And once again, my personal favorite incarnation of Transformers ever is the IDW series before the 2019 reboot. Uh, so there, for a while, there was the IDW series went on for almost 20 years. And they rebooted about halfway through and split their books into More Than Meets the Eye and Robots in Disguise. So there were two different Transformer books going at the same time, right?
Interesting.
So one of the writers for oh man, I always get his name wrong. James Roberts. Okay, James
Okay.
Roberts. James Roberts was the writer for More Than Meets the Eye, and he has a very ironically human take on Transformers, where his setup is at this midway reboot point. The Transformers and the Autobots and the Decepticons have ended their war. They are now living in relative peace. They've got peace treaties going on. They've realized that throughout all of these years, they haven't really gotten anywhere. And mainly, Megatron realizes that he really screwed up. Megatron was originally a miner named D16, and he saw that there was a lot of injustice on Cybertron, that the elites owned everything, that the elites created an underclass that were not allowed to, express themselves, were not allowed to have political say, that they were essentially prisoners of the system. And he wanted to defeat that system. And in doing so, he he changed his drill into a giant fusion cannon, and he became Megatron. So his goal was to liberate his people, but then he realized that he really, really messed up on that and caused a lot more death than before. So he turned himself into the Autobots and said, "Yeah, I'm sorry about all that." This caused a lot of discouragement among among the Decepticon ranks. Soundwave, the cassette player, went off to start his own space station and said, "Yeah, I'm done with all this. I'm not dealing with anybody." He let Autobots and Decepticons alike come onto his space station, and Megatron committed himself to just serving out the rest of his millions of years in prison because he felt bad for what he had done. But they gave him an out because Hot Rod, the young kid who got Optimus killed in the movie, was going to go off in a spaceship and find the Knights of Cybertron. It was just a legend, but they said, "Hey, maybe we can go find them. Let's go on this ship, the Lost Light." And they said, "Hey, Megatron, why don't you join us?" And Megatron said, "All right, I'll go." And he decides to renounce Decepticonism, puts an Autobot symbol on. He joins this wacky crew. And over the course of the book, they address such things as, for instance, Transformers don't experience gender the way that we do because, you can have masculine or feminine bodies. There is an entire planet of feminine coded Transformers, but again, they don't do same-sex, cross-sex relationship, heterosexual, homosexual relationships because they're robots. So it's just whoever they are. So there's a lot of canonically gay Transformers. There are transsexual Transformers because they can just change their metal bodies at will.
Oh, well, that's true. Yes.
So if they
convenient.
decide that one doesn't work, they can change another.
They're gender fluid.
Exactly.
Maybe all of them.
Exactly. Because again, they're more than meets the eye. So James Roberts brought a lot of these ideas into there and a lot of ideas of what it means to be, alive, what it means to have relationships. And there's this big burly warrior named Cyclonus. And if you've seen the 1986 movie, he is a purple jet that is super evil and worked for Unicron. And in the comic, he's fairly stoic and he's like a samurai, but he has a very soft spot for his coworker and decides to give up everything because he's in a relationship with his coworker. And there's a
Oh.
whole big thing and all that. It's very, very emotionally driven instead of just being toys being smashed together. They go off on all these planets. There is a time when they meet a race of aliens that feeds on charisma, and the only way that they can kill it is by putting Megatron and Hot Rod in the same room at the same time because they get overloaded with charisma and they all die.
Oh.
So it's that they also address this thing called functionism, where back in the 1980s, on the back of every Transformer box, it had the Transformer's name, their function, what they
Yes.
did. They're a
Yeah.
geologist or this or this or this.
I remember
So
this.
there was a system of discrimination based on Transformer alt modes. Because were you a useful Transformer, a very useful Transformer like Thomas the Tank Engine, where you could transport things or blow things up, or were you useless Transformer like a data tape? So they
Okay.
talked about what it means to be useful in a world that is very ableist.
Oh.
And he actually sort of wrote. They also have hollow avatars because they want to interact with people, and the hollow avatars may not match their presentation because you might have a big burly robot that is a little Japanese girl, all that kind of stuff. But anyway, the point behind all this is that James essentially wrote himself into this as a character called Rung, who is a psychologist.
Okay.
And they never, until the end, reveal what Rung transforms into because Rung himself doesn't know what he transforms into. Rung has a rivalry with a robot named Freud. Freoid. And there's a lot of psychology in there. I very much recommend it. He's only been made as a battle master that turns into a gun. Rung does not turn into a gun. That a third party company made a genuine part that is in my office, currently packed up. But Rung turns into Rung is essentially the form of Primus in this universe, the god of Transformers.
Okay.
And he transforms into a machine that makes matrices of leadership. And his last physical action is to grant Megatron and Hot Rod each a matrix of leadership so they can light the darkest hour, so they can defeat all these bad guys. So there is an essay that I've included in the show notes about why this Megatron, Autobot Megatron, is autistic. So this article, and again, it's not confirmed, but seeing as how there's so much other representation in the IDW comics, yeah, I can see it because again, having a neurodivergent transformer, an autistic transformer, really, really makes sense. Because this version of Megatron is either 100% literal and doesn't get a concept, or is 100% metaphorical and suddenly understands super abstract concepts that other Cybertronians don't get. There is zero in between. It is canon that he hates people touching him due to sensory and personal space issues, and he has meltdowns when Ultra Magnus hugs him without permission.
Oh, no. Wow. That is autistic culture in action right there.
He doesn't understand most forms of humor unless he makes it himself. He has to study with Ultra Magnus how to make jokes.
Yeah, me too.
And
it's
Ultra Magnus in this continuity, in the 1984 continuity, he was essentially Optimus Prime's brother. That's followed through with many. This version of Ultra Magnus started off as Optimus Prime's brother, but he was killed, so his armor was passed on to somebody else, who was passed on to somebody else. So the idea of Ultra Magnus couldn't die. So this Ultra Magnus is a bot hidden inside a bot, hidden inside Ultra Magnus. And he is a heavily masked person. But again, he is the Tyrest Accords. Anyway, very justice oriented, very no nonsense, very by the books, also very autistic coded. So anyway, anyway, he has special interests in literature as well as politics.
Me too, my friend.
Megatron knows literally everything about the golden age of Cybertron and functionalism so that he can fight his justice. He can fight because he has justice sensitivity. He
Okay.
he wrote a book. Uh, Megatron wrote a book about how injustice works and why Cybertronians should fight injustice so that everyone will be equal. He
Mm-hmm.
info dumps about all this. He rambles on. He has a lot of difficulty functioning in social settings. He's very reclusive, even among Decepticons. And when they have movie night on the Lost Light because they love watching Earth movies, he avoids it because he doesn't want to interact with anybody.
Uh-huh. All right. Sounds familiar.
He has a hard time making facial expressions other than his normal stern look. He has a hard time with vocal tones and a very hard time being casual with his tone of voice because he prefers a very formal way of speaking. He's prone to random fits of rage, which seem like meltdowns, and
Mm.
it usually happens when his routine is disrupted, when
Mm.
things don't go his way, and when injustice happens.
Yeah.
There's this so the decept because Megatron decides that he's going to be an Autobot because he was wrong. Some Decepticon fanatics called the Decepticon Justice Division take up the mantle of quote unquote true Decepticonism. They all take names of famous Decepticon cities and they go out and they decide that they are going to kill Decepticon traitors, including Megatron.
Okay.
So there is this one transformer that turns into a tape, that turns into a jaguar called Ravage. And in this comic, Ravage can speak. He's essentially just a talking cat. He's a talking black cat that's Megatron's only friend. So
Mm-hmm.
Megatron's a cat guy.
Okay.
And
Also autistic. See
Megatron
cats are autistic for details on that.
Megatron tries to reason with Tarn, the leader of the Decepticon Justice Division, and he says, "I knew you back before, you were Tarn. I knew that you're a good bot, this, and everything else." Megatron has one fusion cannon. Tarn has two fusion cannons because he wants to be twice as good as Megatron. He decides that in order to show Megatron a lesson, he's going to kill Ravage,
Mm.
his cat. Megatron did not take that well.
No, we don't
So
tend to.
Megatron proceeds to destroy the entire Decepticon Justice Division, and he almost turns back into a Decepticon until Ravage's dying words were, "Don't turn back. You've come so far. Don't let this define you." So he stays an Autobot out of Ravage's last words.
Mm.
So uh, Megatron is very routine. He hates when his routine is disrupted. So whenever someone, usually Rodimus Prime, messes up his routine, he kind of freaks out because Rodimus is very ADHD. Uh, he's charismatic, but he's super ADHD. Even in the Transformers movie, voiced by Judd Nelson, he accidentally got Optimus Prime killed because he's a little impulsive. So he and Rodimus bump heads a little bit. But again, Megatron needs anchor people. He needs Ravage. He needs to talk to Ravage. He needs to be around Ravage. Ravage is the only one who can calm him down whenever he's upset. And this is a big thing because we have a lot of,
Co-regulation.
yeah, we need the co-regulation.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this guy makes an excellent argument that Megatron is in fact autistic in the IDW continuity. And
Okay, I buy it.
coincidentally enough, this happens to be my personal favorite incarnation of Megatron. I've bought every version of this Megatron with his Autobot logo because he resonated with me. I loved it. And until I read this, I didn't really put it all
Get
together.
why? Yep.
But yes, he outlines point, and yeah, he's autistic as all get out.
It's so funny how often the characters that we resonate with, we're like, oh, I love this character. And then when you step back and do the analysis, and I know a lot of our listeners have started watching through that lens, you could start to see like, oh, that's probably why I've been so attracted to this character, is it just makes sense to me. It's like the double empathy problem, but acted out in the entertainment connection.
Exactly. And so Megatron is the king autistic Transformer, but we've got some honorable mentions. For
Okay.
instance, so in the 1986 movie, we were introduced to the Junkions. They come from a planet of junk. They look like they're made of junk. They are essentially Mad Max style biker robots that each turns into a motorcycle ridden by another Junkion. And if they're blasted, the rider turns into a motorcycle, and the motorcycle turns into the new rider, and they just keep on going. And they can put themselves back together. They can repair other Transformers. Why they didn't fix Optimus Prime is just an issue with storytelling. But
Okay.
they are Gestalt language processors.
Oh.
The only way that they know how to speak is by watching Earth television. So they speak entirely in Earth television quotes. Don't touch that dial. Kills bugs dead. And they quote, I'm a pepper, you're a pepper. And, all sorts of 80s references. The original Wreck-Gar was voiced by Eric Idle. And in the segment where the Junkions appear, they played Weird Al Yankovic's Dare to Be Stupid, which
Perfect.
we must cover Weird Al at some point on this show.
We do have him on the list, yes.
Yeah. So Weird Al, Eric Idle, the Gestalt language processors throughout the entire series, he's dead, Jim. They only speak in phrases familiar, which is a thing that Michael Bay sort of bastardized for Bumblebee because in the Transformers live action movie, there were several different factors going into play. Hasbro wanted to make a movie about their transforming robots. Michael Bay wanted to make an alien invasion movie where the U.S. military kills all the aliens. Steven Spielberg wanted to make a movie about a boy in his magic car. So they decided the Bumblebee could not be a Volkswagen because Herbie Fully Loaded was coming out around that time, and they didn't want to get them confused because people would confuse Bumblebee and Herbie.
Mm-hmm.
But they decided that since he was a magic car robot, he couldn't speak, so they had him speak through the radio, which bugs me to no end.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So they're just now undoing that. I really hate that plot point. It really bugged me. So not really Gestalt language, just doing an AAC device at best because he was vocal. But in Transformers Animated, again with Corey Burton playing Megatron and Shockwave and Ratchet and all these others, Wreck-Gar comes back, but Eric Idle was busy with Spam-A-Lot on Broadway, so he couldn't come back. So they got Weird Al to voice Wreck-Gar.
By the way, I saw that production of Spam-A-Lot on Broadway.
Oh, very nice.
That is just saying. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Eric Idle is a great showman. I'm very much a fan.
Yes.
But yeah, so Wreck-Gar is played by Weird Al, very much a Gestalt language processor, very much naive, does not understand a lot of the world around him, needs other people to explain references and what's good, what's bad, why, because he was literally just born yesterday. So, yeah, so we've got some canonical Transformers who are autistic. We've got some voice actors who are autistic. We've got some characters who exhibit a lot of autistic traits, and we've got a lot of the toys themselves are fancied by autistic children worldwide and autistic adults who may or may not own thousands of them, because that's me.
Yes, may or may not. No guilty confessions.
And as a final kicker, I was talking with a friend of the show, Tracy, who lives in Washington, D.C., and she was asking if I consider myself a leader, and I was like, I don't know. I'm a host. I'm a teacher. I'm a speaker. I don't know if I'm a leader. But as I was telling her that, the mail lady dropped off my package that I had ordered weeks prior, which was the Autobot Matrix of Leadership. So I got the touch. I got the power.
Maybe you're a student. Yes, you're a student of leadership.
Apparently so. So here we are. So yeah, I fully claim that Transformers, with several in particular, are definitely autistic.
All right. Well, you have definitely made the case. I will tell you, I definitely didn't realize there was so much going on with the Transformers. I thought it all really ended in the 90s, but apparently I just stopped paying attention.
Oh, yeah. There's some really, really neat stuff.
Yeah, I definitely did not know all that.
So the answer to the trivia question, did you catch it when did you remember that we had a trivia question?
I always remember we have trivia questions. I was paying attention.
Oh, good.
Let's see if everybody else was paying attention. Ask me the question again. I got you.
Which famous diagnosed autistic voice actor was a major player in the Transformer franchise?
Okay, well, see, now it's easy because that was 50% of the episode. Corey Burton?
Corey Burton! Yay! You win!
Awesome. I would not have gotten point. If this were pub trivia and I hadn't listened to this episode, I would have not gotten that correct. I did not. But it makes sense. You should just guess Corey Burton for every, what autistic voice actor? Just jump right in. Corey Burton.
Yeah. Corey Burton
That should
and
be
Tom
the
Kenny.
answer.
Because, SpongeBob.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll get there. Well, that's
True.
an upcoming one. But yes, Corey Burton does everything.
That's true. That's true.
So, Angela, what did you love about being autistic this week?
Oh, I have a fun one this week. Oh.
Echo.
Hey, Patrick, can you give us 10 minutes and come back? Thanks. People are early. We have to be prepared for that.
That works?
Okay. Okay, so I have a fun one in terms of what I loved about being autistic this week. You have inspired me, Matt, and I have decided to go back for yet another PhD.
Another PhD?
Yes.
You're doubling down.
I want to be a doctor. I'm going to change my first name to Doctor.
Give me the news.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You did that right. So it's Freshers Week in the UK, and I had my first week in the postgraduate program at University of Kent, where our buddy Damian Milton is from. And I'm very excited to start digging into some research. And this was my first week, so I'm preparing a study that I am proposing. I am sure you will all hear about.
Congratulations. That's going to be awesome.
Yes, very fun. There's nothing autistic people, many of us, I do not speak for all of us, but love more than collecting more data. And that is what I will be doing. I will be literally collecting data for a grade.
You're also collecting doctorates, so...
Okay, also that. Listen, it's a museum.
Yeah.
I need all the degrees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, botany, you're next.
Whoa, maybe not. Yeah. That sounds hard.
Yeah.
Anyway, between now and next week, actually not even next week, we've got another show in a few days. I will be here reading Stacks and Stacks. So that's what I'm up to. But I am excited about our Friday shows. So tune in a few days. And remember, we've got shows now on Tuesdays and Fridays for those of you who need more Autistic Culture podcast.
We'll see you there. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to the Autistic Culture podcast.
If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to check out our advocacy episodes every Friday, where we explore important issues and share strategies for living your best, most authentically autistic life.
And for even more Autistic Culture, consider becoming a paid member for exclusive perks like Q&A calls live with Matt and I, a virtual writing circle, and our new self-defined living course by Becca Laurie Hector.
Fun fact, it costs us about $8 for every minute you hear or see us on the podcast, but our member pricing is just $8 a month. What a bargain! Buy one, get 500 free. Seriously, if you could afford it, we would really appreciate your contribution. It makes this all possible.
And of course, the best way everyone can support what we're doing here is to rate, review, share, and subscribe on Substack or your favorite podcast app.
This is the way.